here's the deal. I'm giving this guitar one more chance. So this was a project that I first started in 2012. It was actually inspired by two different guitars. So the first one, I saw this picture of a Les Paul with a Bigsby. I always thought that looked sexy. So I thought it would be great to have my own Les Paul with a Bigsby. So I thought, you know, what if I buy like a Les Paul Studio, get a USA, you know, US made Les Paul Studio, would be a good bone structure to build on, and just configure it the way that I want to. And the other thing is a guitar unrelated to this that I've always loved. It's a guitar that Alex Lifeson used in the 80s. It was this red Fender Stratocaster. It had a mirrored pickguard on it. Always thought that was really cool. So that was kind of an inspiration to sort of do my own build. Now, being a totally different guitar for one, but I set out to find sort of a candy apple red Les Paul Studio. And as a lot of guitar players are, we tend to be impulsive. So as soon as I got the idea to do this project, I had to have it like right away. So I found this guitar at a store. It was like an hour and a half outside of my city. So I decided to jump in my car, head down there, and it was a piece of crap. It was one of the worst guitars I ever played. But someone who I had called through just like an online ad or whatever happened to call me back while I was out there, and it turned out he was in the same city, so I met him in the parking lot, and he had this sort of wine red Les Paul Studio. It wasn't sort of the candy apple red that I wanted, but again, being impulsive, I decided to pick it up. It was like $700 Canadian cash, I think. I don't know if that was if I overspent or what. But anyways, I mean, the neck on it's pretty thick. I'm not really a fan of the big chunky necks, but not too bad. But it just, you know, with all the things that I did to it, and I'll talk about that in a second, it just never stayed in tune. But this is long before I had a YouTube channel. I took a lot of detailed photos of the process, so we're going to take a look at that. But I just had one more setup done. I took it into a local music shop, Cosmo. By the way, this is not sponsored. Apparently I'm the best deal going on YouTube right now. But this guy, Daryl, who actually has been working on my best friend's guitars for many, many years, and he gave this thing the best setup that it ever had. We did a couple extra things. I'll talk about that. Even put a new pickup in there. I don't know, again, being impulsive, putting a pickup in a guitar that you're not sure is going to stay in tune, but I wanted to try something a little bit different. So anyways, I'm going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the String Butler. Again, I bought it off of Amazon yesterday. I'm going to pop it on, and we're going to see if it makes a difference, and can we save this Les Paul Studio custom Frankenstein kind of guitar? I don't know what we're going to call it. Well, let's jump into my workshop, and we'll check it out. So this Les Paul Studio, which I purchased in 2012, and through the magic of pictures that I took over a decade ago, I can actually show you the initial transformation from where it started into what it became. The tuning issues continued, and I made an additional modification, which I'll talk about in a second. That's this little thing right here. And then just this past week, I did one more setup. Actually, it's playing better than it ever did before. It feels great. I mean, I really struggled playing this guitar, but it actually feels really good. And I even put a new pickup in here, but I'll talk about that in a second. Adding a Bigsby to a Les Paul is super easy if you use a Vibramate kit. This allows you to install a Bigsby without the need for drilling any additional holes or taking it into a shop for installation. I started by removing the original stop bar tailpiece and the strap lock button at the bottom of the guitar. The Vibramate adapter screws into the same holes as the stop bar, and then the Bigsby is fastened to the adapter. It was a perfect fit. The smaller mounting plate screws into the back end of the Bigsby, and the original strap lock button fastens the assembly into the existing threading. The install was as simple as that. Next, I was ready to install a mirrored pickguard and a chrome tip for the pickup selector. I just removed the old pickguard. Yes, I know, some of you prefer it just like this. But the replacement pickguard installed easily with the original hardware. And installing the new chrome tip was as easy as replacing a light bulb. Literally. Next, I swapped out the tuners with Grover locking tuners. The one challenge here was the Clouson style tuners have 2 mounting screws and Grover's have just 1. So I patched this up with some wood filler and nail polish. I think I was the first person to ever walk into my local makeup store with a guitar looking to match the color. I could have spent more time here, but the new tuners hid most of the scars, and it is on the back. I then popped the strings on and I was done. So I thought. The tuning stability on this guitar was horrible. So the first thing I tried was to replace the original Tune-O-Matic bridge with a Schaller roller bridge. The idea was this should help reduce the friction when the strings slide through the bridge when using the Bigsby. I did swap out the speed knobs with these white ones, and I got a custom engraved chrome truss rod cover. Fuzzy Gus. It's an old nickname. So even with the Schaller roller bridge, I still had tuning issues. I just heard, with the standard Tune-O-Matic, it's pretty sharp saddles there, that you might get some sticking there. So between what happens at the nut and what happens here, this could help. Put this on, it was easy, basically fit into the same pole pieces, but the tuning issues continued. It was around that time that I actually abandoned this guitar, using it maybe once in a while. So in this past week, I decided to take it into the shop and have it looked at. And again, that impulsive nature, actually put a new pickup in here. Even before I decided whether or not this was going to be good enough to use in the studio, I put a Seymour Duncan Nazgul pickup in here. I recently got an angled Powerball 2, and I'm not really a high gain, like metal guy. I like high gain, but not really, modern high gain. But I wanted to sort of experiment with those tones, and I don't have a guitar that does that. So I decided to try putting this in here. Replace the nut. Actually, there's a Tusq Nut in here now, which should hopefully help tuning stability as well. It's definitely better than it was. But Daryl, who worked on this guitar, suggested that I get the String Butler. So I bought it on Amazon. Like I said, this is not sponsored. I paid $70 Canadian for this little thing. But I read a lot of good things about this. There's a few videos on YouTube, and people swear by this. So we're going to pop this on, and we're going to see if it's going to make a difference. Now, I just had the guitar set up, and now I got to take the strings off. So I'm going to use a capo to hopefully hold the strings in place. And this shouldn't really affect the setup because we're not changing the height or anything, really just the break angle from the nut. And we'll see if that makes a difference. All right, let's put on the String Butler.
The idea is pretty simple. Many Gibsons and other brands with 3-in-3 tuner layouts are plagued by tuning issues because the break angle of the strings from the nut to the tuners is pretty severe, and this can cause nut binding. On top of that, the angled headstock compounds the tuning issues for many Gibsons, especially that G string. You know what I'm talking about. The String Butler allows the strings to flow straight through the nut. While the new break angles are more severe, they are guided through smooth rollers to minimize friction. I started by putting a capo on the 5th fret. I don't need to remove all of the strings, but I will have to remove the high and low E strings and loosen the A and B strings. So this will help keep the strings in place. After removing the 2 E strings, I removed their bushings and washers. I then placed the plastic washers that came with the String Butler. Then I maneuvered the String Butler into place and reinstalled the original bushings and washers. The String Butler has to be installed dead center to be effective. I loosely tighten the String Butler into place, guiding the edges with my fingers. I then place the strings into place around their designated rollers and tighten the strings. Doing this actually forced the String Butler into place, perfectly centered on the headstock. Then I did the final tightening to lock it into place. I then put the 2 E strings back on and tuned up the guitar. I kind of like the look of it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.
3 days later.
Well, I'm happy to report that the String Butler did its job. I think I finally have another guitar here that I can put into active duty here in the studio. It's taken a long time to get here. Now, can I give full credit to the String Butler? I don't think that would be fair because there's a lot of things that went on to really bring this guitar up to code. I mean, that setup that I just had went a long way to improving this guitar. But there were tuning issues even after all of that. Now, if you are looking to put a Bigsby on your guitar, for example, anything you can do to minimize friction, like I said, the roller bridge is working, the Tusq Nut is working because we want to have a nice flow. We don't want the strings, binding up, especially here in the nut, or getting caught here on the saddles. It's going to put your guitar out of tune. But with all of that, we're still having some issues, and the String Butler definitely did its job. I mean, look, Gibsons, some of them are plagued with tuning issues. I mean, I've got a good Gibson right here. It doesn't have the same problems, but some of them do. This one did. A lot of it was self-inflicted. But anyways, And also a special mention, the Seymour Duncan Nazgul pickup. Kind of an odd pickup to put in this guitar, which should have been more of a traditional, sounding guitar, but decided to go more modern with it because I wanted to pair it with this Engel Powerball 2. Now we're going to hear more from these two in upcoming videos, so now would be a good time to hit that like and subscribe button if you want more content like this. But anyways, I want to give my props to the String Butler. I said this was not a sponsored review. I did this on my own. I just needed that last little thing to hopefully save this guitar, and I think that we did. You're definitely going to be seeing this guitar more and more in upcoming videos. Anyways, if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, that's what the comment section is for. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. I do have affiliate links, including a list of a lot of the gear that I have here in the studio and other essentials. Clicking those links kicks a little bit back to the studio and helps me bring more content like this to you. I've got merch. I'm also on Patreon. It all helps, and I really appreciate that. But the most important thing is to check out another video. I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video.